This is Beth Butler, and thank you for listening to From the Ground Up, where we chat with people in and around the real estate industry. I have been in the real estate business for 35 years, and much of my experience has been about building the business from the ground up. And I'm pleased to share some of the people who I've met along the way and who have helped me build in this podcast. Today on From the Ground Up podcast, we welcome Steve Giacello, who's the president and CEO of Puerto Rico Properties. And we're going to talk about why to buy in Puerto Rico, what's good about Puerto Rico. He's got a good vacation rental business in Puerto Rico. So we're going to talk a little bit about vacation rentals and Puerto Rico. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So let's go back a bit. Steve, I know you've had many careers, including, I love that you were an inline skater and like Olympic quality inline skater. So will you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was an athlete. I was very young. I started roller skating, and that evolved to roller indoor speed skating. And as time came by, then a new format of skating was called inline rollerblading, as they say, came about, and I started competing a little bit more. And I actually represented Puerto Rico for the Central American Games and the world competitions in Colorado Springs. It's many years ago. It's back in the early 90s, I want to say, like 90, 91 approximately. So it's been quite a while competing. I really enjoy being competitive. Obviously, times have changed, and now I have to get a real career going. So, but the competitive skating gave me definitely an edge of not giving up on any kind of business that I've started. And I really enjoy getting involved with any type of new business ventures. And Puerto Rico has definitely been a challenge.
Yeah, well, before we hop into Puerto Rico, so I know you are a serial entrepreneur, and you've done many businesses. So I would love for you just to highlight a few of the businesses that you've had. You've been successful in a lot of different fields. So if you'll just walk us through some of those great companies that you've run and businesses that you've run, that would be awesome.
Well, back in 1998, I moved to South Florida. I worked for a manufacturer of DJ supply and equipment that I was able to move down to South Florida and start distributing towards Latin America and all of Florida. And a couple years later, I had an opportunity to basically start a repping firm, a manufacturer's repping firm. So I was a manufacturer sales rep for my own company. And I represented as many as 30 different brands, everything from RCA Thompson to Monster Cable. I was able to represent also like Rayovac Battery, Remington Shavers. So these were all top tier manufacturers that I had an opportunity to work, and I was selling them into retail space, and also some internet-based business. Back then, the internet wasn't as strong as it is now, obviously, so retail was definitely the way to sell my product. So I was able to have a pretty good career. It lasted until about 2008. Business kind of changed and it went in a different direction. So I basically had to try to reinvent myself. So back in 2008, probably to like 2010, I was kind of figuring out what to do. I was living in South Florida, so I started another company which was called Get Credit Healthy, which is a credit education, credit repair type of business. But at the end of the day, it became a credit educational business. And a couple years later, I left the business. The partner that I started it with, she's gone on and continued the growth. The company has since gone public. So it's a pretty interesting business model. It just basically helps clients help with their credit and learning how credit works, how the FICO scoring model works, how to deal with the three credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And it's helped a lot of people. It's helped a lot of people be able to either get back on their feet or just learning how to start building their credit so they're able to buy a home or a car. So it was really a good business model, help many individuals. So that was the next phase. And then the next phase I went on to was Puerto Rico. I didn't really jump into Puerto Rico. I was kind of asked to go there by my mother. We owned several properties that we've had for, probably over 50 or 60 years. They originally started with my maternal grandfather, and he passed on in the early 90s. So from there, we had a lot of commercial real estate and some residential. But as time goes by, people don't really have the interest. People meaning like my family. Most of our families in the U.S. So you really have to be locally in order to take care of some of these properties. And my uncles and aunts, everybody kind of left the island. I have one uncle there with his wife, but they really weren't interested in the business of continuing the real estate and dealing with customers and dealing with tenants and collecting rent, everything that goes along with the business, especially the maintenance. So I was asked to go there, and sure, I got there. It wasn't the best situation as far as having a home turnkey or other properties that are turnkey. I found myself facing a number of different challenges. Namely, one was rehabbing homes and construction, which I knew little to none of, and having to deal with contractors in a different language was a major challenge because I'm American. I speak English, even though I'm Hispanic. I'm Puerto Rican. I did have a challenge dealing with day-to-day conversations with contractors. So basically, I threw myself in there. I had a couple friends of mine that were architects in Puerto Rico, so they kind of gave me some direction on what to do and how to do things. But sure, everything was very, very expensive and costly getting started. So that was a major, major challenge because we were not prepared, not only financially, but psychologically, to have to deal with all these challenges, especially when you're living on an island. Everything seems to be on island time, which everybody heard of that terminology. Tomorrow doesn't really mean tomorrow. It means, yeah, I think I can make it tomorrow, but if I don't show up, just, I won't be there. But they won't call you and let you know. So those are some of the major, major hurdles that I had to deal with, especially, when I come from a structured business model. When you say tomorrow, I'm used to someone showing up, and I had to learn not to get upset with these little setbacks on a day-to-day type of basis, it seemed. Every week it was something new. But what I learned very quickly is you have to learn how to deal with these challenges, and you cannot get upset because in Puerto Rico, we are on a tropical island, and the challenge is you can't just fire somebody and just get another person because there's just not that many people there to be able to help you with your challenges. So, it's very difficult to get a new crew of workers and things like that. So I ended up being like a GC, general contractor, and hiring my own crews. And, when people don't show up to work, you just have to learn how to take the day off that day or go do other things, go look at other properties or go shopping at Home Depot. The good thing about Puerto Rico is everything is just like being in the U.S. from almost retail stores are there.
Well, it is the U.S. It is the U.S.,
It is the
yes.
U.S., but it's like what I'm trying to say is like it is the U.S., but it's very similar to being in the U.S. in a regular city in America where they have every major retailer there. That's what I meant to say.
So Steve, just going back a bit. So you had these family-owned properties. Were they already set up as rental properties, or did you come in and convert them to short-term rentals?
Well, when I got there, it looked like a home that was ready for somebody to come in there and rehab it because they were definitely not ready to be lived in. What does that mean? They use a lot of tile flooring in Puerto Rico. The tiles were cracked and needed to be replaced. The bathrooms were dated bathrooms, 20, 30 years, original bathrooms that no one's ever touched. So we had to go in there and basically start doing one bathroom at a time, the floors, one floor at a time. And it was a challenge, like psychologically, like I said, it was these are homes that I remember as a child going to, but I didn't remember having all these issues with them or having to fix things. So,
Right.
everything, it was like, at the end of the day, it was like a box that needed to take everything out of the box and throw away and get rid of. And that was something also psychologically, these are things from my childhood that I remember. For example, my grandparents' home, we weren't ready to demo our home, our grandparents' home, because they're no longer with us, but these are our childhood memories. And so sure enough, some of these homes, we had the utilities and the water underneath the floor. So we literally had to demo the whole house together to get through the utilities and put everything brand new. And very expensive when you're not used to dealing with construction and dealing with all these overheads and these costs. So, soon we're finding ourselves we're in no man's land. We have to now complete the project, or else the house is going to be worth less money. So,
So did you refurbish them always knowing you were going to make them short-term rentals?
no. So we're going back now 8 years or so approximately, and I had no idea what we were doing. All I know is we were trying to fix them so they were livable. Thank God, and I'm not too religious, but I'm starting to see the light a little bit more. Thank God we were able to have a platform known as Airbnb, which now I'm knee-deep in construction, and I'm doing marketing, trying to figure out how this works. And this is it was like a new, a new language, I want to say, because we had to figure out how this platform worked. Several people had mentioned it to me, especially people from out of the U.S. What I mean, people from Europe, they're used to the short-term rental business. This is quite common for most people. But the platform itself, online, where you're using the internet to advertise your home, was definitely new. So when I first started in Puerto Rico with the house is when I got my first house completed. We had to go that now furnish it, and we're looking for the simplest, fastest way, which is IKEA, modern, good-looking furniture, attractive, so you could take photos and you'll upload into the website for Airbnb. I'm using Airbnb, but as a sample, but I use many different platforms now. But Airbnb was able to basically help me get started, and it was the simplest way to get started in this business. And I'm very appreciative because what we soon discovered after I invested thousands and thousands of dollars rehabbing these homes, we could not rent it to a local person because they could not, the local economy, they were still getting over the recession from 2008, and people could just not pay the type of money that you need to recover your investment. So with the Airbnb business model, we're able to probably triple the income versus a traditional monthly rental, which helped us quite a bit to get onto the next property, because you could only do one house at a time, and then you try to go to the next one, and you try to duplicate the process. So the process has now been several years, and fortunately we have about 7 properties active, and we have about 2 more properties on the pipeline. in projections for hopefully 2021.
Well, good. So I think that by now, right, in this early idea of short-term rentals, and I'm just trying to go back and think about the first time I heard about it. I had a friend. It was back in the I don't know, trying to think, maybe early 2000s, right? I had a friend that owned a house over in Marco Island, and she was the first person I knew that she rented it for the season, and then she started going. She bought a second property over there, a condo, and then she started to do the nightly short-term rentals. And she was the first person to kind of bring it to my attention. And there wasn't even Airbnb at the time. It was Home Away. I'm trying to remember. It was like Home Away and VRBO, which I know they call themselves Verbo now. But this is how people kind of transacted. So really fast forward now a good 20 years, and it's become mainstream, right? Almost everybody that's buying a second home or an investment property is saying that they want to be able to do the short-term rental or some sort of rental to recoup at least cover some of the expenses while they're not using the house. So with that, what are the benefits to buying this type of property in Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico is on sale. That's the best way to describe it. It's when I say sale, I mean it's a fire sale. You could buy homes there as little as $20,000. You just have to have the vision and the capacity to know how to fix them and be handy. But there's many different homes there. It's all types of properties in Puerto Rico. Sure, there's multi-million-dollar homes too. You could find homes in the $20 million range in Puerto Rico also. So it goes from one extreme to the other. It just depends on what kind of investor that you are and what you feel comfortable and what type of communities you want to live in. But yes, there's many opportunities in Puerto Rico. The taxes in Puerto Rico, that's a whole other conversation. I have homes that pay an average of $1,000 a year in property taxes, which is, compared to Florida or any of these other states in the north of the U.S., it's nothing. So there's a lot of opportunity there. It's just a question of you feeling comfortable in understanding what your investment is. And also, if you make an investment in Puerto Rico, what's your exit strategy? What is your long-term goal? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to fix it to make money and try to flip it to somebody else? Or are you planning on just running an Airbnb type of short-term rental business? So it just depends on the individual and what their needs are at that time. It's a great place to retire. Puerto Rico, I would strongly suggest to anybody who's on fixed income and they have a retirement and they want to save money, go to Puerto Rico. I think a lot of people would be very happy there. There's a lot of English-speaking people there. A lot of people can easily communicate with you. And for a tropical island, believe it or not, it's very, very inexpensive compared to some of the neighboring islands, meaning the price of consumer products are very reasonably priced compared to any other tropical island.
So does it do that retirement tourism kind of market like Costa Rica and Panama?
Yes, it could be that, or it could be Puerto Ricans that maybe they second generations that grew up in New York and they want to move back to Puerto Rico. Those type of people are definitely moving back. There's a lot of military. Our biggest influx right now is generally hedge fund managers, millionaires or billionaires that are moving to Puerto Rico for tax purposes. The taxes are very inexpensive. As long as you live 6 months and a day in Puerto Rico, you get to report, I believe, 0 federal income tax.
Oh, really? So not only are the property taxes low, there's also federal tax implications of incentives or benefits of living in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
If you live there, just like people are moving to Florida 6 months in a day, same thing, they're moving to Puerto Rico, but it sounds like you don't just avoid state income tax, you can avoid federal income tax.
Exactly. And if you move your corporation, I'm not a tax expert, but that's the first person you got to get as a tax expert and a good attorney that knows how to do this transition for you or your business. But you move your corporation in Puerto Rico, and you're looking at, I believe it's a 4% federal income tax for your corporation.
Getting back to that fixed income, right? So if you're retiring and you're getting Social Security, you can really your dollars not only is the cost of living cheaper there, but also the taxation. So your dollars are really maximized there, and you're living, Puerto Rico is the United States, so you are living in the U.S. You do have good health care, so it really is a great alternative.
It's a fantastic alternative. So it's probably the best thing out there. Rents are are pretty inexpensive for locals if you know how to shop for the right rentals. But there's a lot of opportunity in Puerto Rico also to make money. It's just a question of you being aggressive and wanting to work.
So you were there during Hurricane Maria and all of the aftermath and dealt with that. And that had a big impact on tourism to Puerto Rico. And just as that started to come back, it looks like COVID has also had an impact on tourism in Puerto Rico. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it was devastating to the island. But as far as business, thank God I had my properties ready to go. So I was doing a business model for Maria, BYOG, bring your own generator, and I was renting homes with no power. Who were my customers? My customers were contractors that have teams, they were there, FEMA workers, companies that had contracts to fix the internet. Those are the type of general contractors I was able to land, and I had to pay one less utility, which was electricity. So I can't complain. It was a challenge because a lot of my homes were damaged, and the insurance companies, we don't have State Farm in Puerto Rico, so anybody who knows what State Farm is, it's pretty much guaranteed money, and they go the extra mile to make sure that you as a customer or a homeowner is well taken care of. Where in Puerto Rico, the insurance companies, they just did not want to pay, and I ended up having to sue a couple companies to try to get my insurance money that I paid for. But as far as the COVID, that's a whole other story. It started affecting us last March, I want to say, all the reservations that we had. So from March, June, pretty much everything shut down. June all the way through I want to say like November. Everything was pretty much shut down as far as tourism in Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rican government set strict guidelines to protect its citizens, which I was perfectly fine with, and I think they did the right move, which is to stop the influx of people traveling, either leaving the island or coming back. So even though the airports never shut down, they were really hesitant on tourism. And right now, I feel like they're doing a really good job, the health department of Puerto Rico, making sure that you have a COVID negative test prior to arriving on the island. So tourism is slowly starting to come back. And, it's going to be a gradual transition. The first thing you do when you enter any business in Puerto Rico, whether it's a restaurant or a hardware store, is they check your temperature, very important. And they also, everybody coming in there, they must get some alcohol to rub on their hands. So I feel very safe in any business in Puerto Rico. And it's something that the government has mandated, and it helps everybody.
That's good. With your rentals, I know that the occupancy has been down. How much is a percentage? Do you have any guess?
Oh, it's definitely over 60%.
And where do most of your potential renters come from? Is it Northeast? I don't think it doesn't sound like it's local, but where in the world are people coming from to go to Puerto Rico?
Well, since I've started, I've had, from most parts of the world, everybody from India to England, Europe. But most of my customers generally are coming from the States, and these are families that are on a budget, that want to come to Puerto Rico on a budget. They could spend a couple $100 a night in average for a family. So we're looking at people that are coming generally from New York, Texas, Florida, Chicagoland. At one time, I was getting quite a few people coming in from California, LA area, where, in Puerto Rico, you could actually jump into the ocean, where in California, you can't even jump into the Pacific Ocean because it's generally too cold. So it's cheaper for people to come in from LA than have them fly to Hawaii, if that makes any sense.
It does. And so you've got a pretty good domestic and a little bit of international people. So other than Airbnb and some of those sites, what do you do to drive traffic to your properties?
I use several different websites, which with the three websites or three or four websites that I'm using right now, a lot of these websites, a lot of these businesses are actually converting. They're buying up other websites. So some of these websites are actually multiplying very quickly, and just uploading your property into several of these short-term rental property websites. You're pretty soon. Next thing you know, you're in like 14 or 15,000 websites, and that's how they. These are professional businesses that are designed just to get the traveler that's really looking to go visiting Puerto Rico or a destination, to get them to put their credit card information down and basically get them to convert. And then it's up to me as the owner operator of the property to make sure that I have a good product for these customers when they arrive to Puerto Rico.
How does social media help?
Social media helps me more for credibility, believe it or not. Credibility meaning, some of these people are skeptical. They're going, they've never used a short-term rental business website. They really don't feel comfortable. So they have to get comfortable with who you are. So I use a lot of the social media to basically promote myself and the houses. The house, I show them a video exactly where they're going to be staying at, so they feel comfortable when they arrive to Puerto Rico that I am a real person, I am in a real neighborhood, and they're going to be safe to enjoy for that week that they're there in Puerto Rico.
Anything else do you use? Do you have a lot of repeat customers? Do you do any email campaigns? Any other tools that you deploy to get rentals?
I use a lot of word of mouth. I'm also my number one promoter for myself. So anytime I'm able to talk to people about Puerto Rico, I'm always trying to get people to come to Puerto Rico and visit the island. Yes, if they happen to use one of my properties, that's just a bonus. But I'm always promoting Puerto Rico. That's the number one goal. I use, platforms like classified ads. Email, I really don't email people. I have a lot of return customers, and then I'm also capturing people's emails, but I try to take it easy with the email campaign, because the last thing you want to be is a spammer or have people reporting you, so that way you're not able to use your own emails.
Do you have a website your own website where your properties are?
Yes, I do. It's basically a landing page. It's called PuertoRicoProperty.us. So it's just basically, you could go there and look at my properties, and then if you want to leave me a message or send me your name and your information, I'm able to capture that information and reach out to you. But yes, that's another way of getting customers. So at the end of the day, I have a web of or a lot of fishing poles out in the water, trying to get these potential clients to reach out to me and call me or text me, and that's how I'm able to keep the business going.
And do you find that people that are coming to you, is your competition other properties on the island, or are they also looking at, maybe Puerto Rico and St. Thomas? Is it Is your competition your local market, or is it also other islands?
No, I think I don't really. It's not to be sounding kind of cocky or anything or arrogant. The person that's going to go to Puerto Rico is going to go to Puerto Rico. The person that's going to go to St. Thomas, they're definitely going to go to St. Thomas. My customer base is going to be somebody who's definitely looking at Puerto Rico. As far as the competition, I don't. You know what? I like competition. It doesn't bother me. At the end of the day, it's pricing. There's, my motto is there's no such thing as a bad property in Puerto Rico. It's just a bad price. If they're not priced correctly, you're not going to get the business.
Good real estate rule overall, right? Price cures everything.
Exactly.
Now, I know because I follow you on social media that you use TikTok, and that fascinates me just on a personal level. I really haven't been involved in it, but you really look like you have fun doing your TikTok videos. Has that been an effective way to market your properties?
I have no clue. I really don't. I'm going to be as honest as possible, but it seems like I get some traction on some videos, and on other videos, I don't get that much traction. So I don't know if it's like a silly type of way to reach out to people, or is it's more of a personal thing than a business type of platform. So I think it's all fairly new, and it's to be determined. But I definitely play. I'm not afraid to go out there and show my face or show my properties and try to get people's reactions, and it's a little bit of fun. I know I irritate my nieces and nephews that are a little bit younger than me, but they laugh at me. But yeah, it's something. Yeah, in a couple of years from now, we'll see if it really helps or not. When I started the YouTube channel, it was about 6 years ago, and now I have some. I have a certain number of subscriptions. I could get the analytics from that information from that page, and that helps me kind of know who my customer is. And TikTok, like I said, it's all fairly new. We're going to determine that in the future, and we're going to keep on going.
Yeah, you look like you have fun with it, and I think, and I think especially for people looking for vacation, fun is sort of at the heart of it. So I feel like you do a good job with it. So check for the audience that's listening, and we'll make sure we put his TikTok info in the show notes so that you can check out his Puerto Rico Properties TikTok. So overall, Steve, do you think now is a good time to buy in Puerto Rico? How would you advise someone to get started?
Well, first of all, the most important thing is that person has to not just take my word or take somebody else's word, or a salesperson that's a realtor trying to sell a property. They have to spend time on the island, see if this is something viable that they could see themselves being there for the next 5 to 10 or 20 years, living in this island in this weather. And the first step I would definitely try to do is try to work with somebody like myself who's not trying to sell them something or a dream, but basically pick my brain and let me be their mentor, or telling them what steps they should go. The first thing they should do is definitely have a good attorney, but a good attorney that's going to be reasonable for their research on the island, where they're not going to be just looking to get paid X amount for every time they go help them with any kind of question, legal question they might have about doing business in Puerto Rico. Another thing is you definitely have to get an accountant that's going to help you with your tax questions in Puerto Rico, because it's a different tax code altogether. You just have to know how it works. And Puerto Rico has their own internal tax system, which is called Hacienda. And that's very important as you do business in Puerto Rico. So you not only have to work with the federal government in the U.S., but you also have to work with the local Puerto Rican tax man, which is Hacienda.
What about people that might want to visit Puerto Rico? What should they know about traveling to Puerto Rico right now? Are there restrictions in place? Can you go freely? So, what's going on with travel to Puerto Rico? What do you need to know?
Well, Puerto Rico is an exciting time to go there right now. Let me tell you, pre-COVID-19, I was paying an average of about $130 on a one-way flight on American Airlines from Miami to Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is pretty decent, I think. I buy my tickets one way because, if things get complicated, I'm able to just buy another ticket and, and I can figure out which way, how long I'm going to be in the island. But right now, I'm buying tickets for as little as $60 on an airplane.
Oh my
that
gosh!
You're going for.
Well, listen, 130 sounded cheap. I can't believe how that, and it's $60.
And that's
one
an
way is
American
amazing.
Airline. Yes, American Airline has tickets that low, and I'm buying them last minute. So buying airplane tickets, that might be another podcast, but I've gotten pretty good at buying them. And I love the fact that I could just, if I have a major issue going to Puerto Rico right now, I could literally leave this afternoon and get on the plane and go. So it's just.
And we'll caveat that's Miami to San Juan, right?
Yes, I'm going from Miami to San Juan generally. But let me tell you, there's people out there that are flying a lot less than that. I'm hearing tickets about $25, $30 on Spirit Airline, JetBlue, all these promotion airlines, because these guys have to have these airplanes filled. They're already scheduled. They have to figure out how to get bodies on that plane. So you could buy tickets a lot cheaper.
Crazy. And so there are no restrictions. Do you have to have a negative COVID test to get on the plane or to enter in?
The way I've been doing it is I go. The way I get my negative COVID test, I generally go through any local place that has the free COVID testing locally, or you could go through like a pharmacy, like CVS. They have the rapid COVID test, and then they mail it to you. And then when you land in Puerto Rico, they have a QR code system where you basically download their questionnaire, and you have to upload the documents, and then you just go through a QR code at the baggage claim. And it's really simple, very straightforward getting through the airports currently. So that's all you need. And when you leave the island, you don't need any kind of testing or anything that you have to prove to the U.S. government once you arrive. It's a domestic flight. It's very simple, very straightforward.
We don't know how all this is going to change in the next upcoming months or days, but right now in February of 2021, that's what it takes. Is there contract tracing in Puerto Rico? Do they take your phone number as you go from restaurant to restaurant? Is there any of that? Do they send you an email or text message every day to see if you're there, if you have any symptoms?
Yes, currently I'm getting. I'm currently in not in Puerto Rico, but I'm currently still getting an email every day, and they basically ask you if you're feeling any of these symptoms, yes or no, and then and you just reply back, and that's all you have to do. So they'll do that for the next 15 days, I believe, 15 days or so. So that's basically all you could do, and then you could also do it via text.
And the cases have been relatively low there, because it is an island, and they've done a pretty good job. Is that the case?
Yes. It's in general, people are very well educated in Puerto Rico, and they all watch the news, and they're all following the protocols that have been set on how to protect themselves and their family, and nobody wants to die. So that's a good alternative. You either take care of yourself, or you might have a serious issue.
And when you're out and about on the streets, Steve, are people wearing masks? Are they wearing masks in stores? Is it the same kind of? Do you find the same kind of adherence to masking and social distancing that you find in Miami?
I actually find them to be more protective. Believe it or not, I don't. It's kind of hard to explain, but I find everybody around me is definitely more protected than they are in the U.S.
Interesting. So it's a good time to go to Puerto Rico. It's cheap to get there. It's a good price to stay there. And while you're there, you should be looking up Steve, pick his brain about buying a short-term rental property.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk to him.
Okay, this podcast is called From the Ground Up. So let's close with a lightning round of questions for you about you and how you grew up from the ground up. You ready?
Yes.
Where were you born?
Chicago, Illinois, Evanston.
What's your academic background?
Self-taught, mostly good mentors in my life that have taught me how to work hard and make money.
What was your first job?
First job, I believe, was with my grandfather, maternal grandfather. He had restaurants and bars, and he had quite a few income-producing rental businesses. So I learned how to deal with vendors, how to deal with contractors at an early age, and handymans, how to get things done and economically as possible.
Who do you consider your best mentor?
My best mentors, I believe, are my parents. Hardworking individual. My mother has her PhD in medical sociology from University of Chicago, and my father was a very successful businessman and entrepreneur. And I learned from him how to negotiate on the street and how to buy and sell really quickly.
Yeah, and let's give your mom a plug here. She's been very involved from Chicago about the impact of COVID on Hispanics. She's kind of been at the forefront of talking about how differently the Hispanic community has been impacted and how much more at risk they are. And so she's done a great job with that. So let's give a shout out to her for that. She's done great work with that and really been very successful in bringing that to the forefront of the conversation with COVID.
Thank you.
Steve, where do you live and what do you like best about your home?
I live currently in Miami area, Coconut Grove to be specific. What I love the most of my home is I generally don't have to do too much when I get home. So I'm very lucky. My wife, Mercedes, works full-time, and she also takes care of our two boys. We have two French bulldogs. And my basic job is to make sure those boys get to walk on a timely basis every day. But I love being home. I love to relax because you spend a little bit of time in Puerto Rico. I'm limited on the time, and I have to get a lot of things done. And dealing with a lot of individuals and contractors is sometimes of a challenge,
So you come to Miami and you rest with Bennett and Bocce.
Bennett and Bocce, yes.
There you go. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Well, I'm gonna have to plug Puerto Rico. I have to love what I do, and I do love what I do. And to tell you the truth, Beth, it's a great island. It's only 100 by 35 miles. So there's still a lot of things for me to explore and to see and to learn. Unfortunately, every time I go to Puerto Rico, as long as I can remember, I've always been working on something. I really don't go there to vacation, but I really do love being there. It's a unique space and an area. The internet works really well. We have AT&T telephone service, so you could do anything you want over there. But I really enjoy being there. I really do.
What is your morning routine?
When I'm in Puerto Rico, I wake up about 5 in the morning and I start planning my day. When I'm in Miami, I wake up about 7 a.m. and basically just take out the dogs, make sure the boys are good, and I like to walk. That's very important to me. I need to get that some exercise, get the blood pumping, and drink some good coffee. But that's basically my morning routine. I'm always checking my emails, making sure that I don't have any leads.
Yeah, I guess that we didn't talk about that, but right, isn't that a very important part of the vacation rental business? Is that response time has to be as quickly as possible. The longer the response time, just like any kind of real estate lead, the longer you take to respond, the less likely you are to be able to book something. Correct?
Beth, I don't have the best properties. I'm not going to mislead a lot of people. I have good properties, and sometimes what I think I'm better than anybody else is to follow up, and I'm on top of it. I drop everything in order to talk to a potential client, and I mean now. I don't wait 30 seconds. I don't wait 30 minutes. That in the 30 minutes you could potentially lose a client, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people work with me is because I'm I'm that quick. I answer the calls. I don't let it go to voicemail. If I know it's a client, I have to convert that lead, and that lead is worth, everything to me in this business, because especially now with this COVID timing, if you don't call back, you're going to lose that client.
Yeah, they'll go on to the next property. So, Steve, do you have any aspirational goals?
It's to finish what I've started. I have two more properties to finish, and as soon as that's done, I'm sure there's going to be other potential businesses that come up. But it's just finish what I started. My goal is to finish these last two homes and try to take it easy. But the deals are going to be getting easier and easier, I feel, as the more time I spend in Puerto Rico.
So is it your plan to retire in Puerto Rico?
Absolutely not. I'm never going to retire. I feel like I could, I want to be active. I don't want to retire, but yeah, if I'm going to be in Puerto Rico, I want to have a simple business model that's always producing. And
at the end, just be happy and healthy, right?
Absolutely. That's the most important thing that we could do.
So what are you reading, watching, listening to?
So I try to watch basic news and move forward. I don't have the luxury of listening in and putting too much energy into the news. And I have to continue no matter what's going on. I try not to watch the local news in Puerto Rico, because if you do, you're going to think that the island's going to basically, we're going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. So, the news, it's two different medias altogether. When I'm home, I was just in Puerto Rico for 10 days. I didn't watch TV once. I didn't even turn it on. So when I'm home in Miami, I try to watch automotive shows, classic motor shows. Those are to me something that makes me kind of relax a little bit, and I'm always learning about cars. Not that I have time to drive them or anything else. I don't, because I could have the biggest car collection. I just don't have time to do any of that stuff right now or play with the cars. So I'm not interested in buying cars, but I like the knowledge about the cars, the history of the cars. So those are the type of things that I enjoy doing on my spare time.
Great. So last question, where can people best connect with you to learn more about Puerto Rico and short-term properties?
They can send me an email, PuertoRicoProperty@gmail.com, or they could reach out to me at 786 area code 571-4333. And my website is PuertoRicoProperty.us. And I also have a YouTube channel. Search for Puerto Rico Property Furnished Rentals. And that should give you a link to my channel, and subscribe if you don't mind. That's the best compliment that I could get. And hopefully one of these days, a lot of people that don't know Puerto Rico will come and visit.
That's great. Thank you so much for being on From the Ground Up podcast today, Steve. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot about being in Puerto Rico, and I hope our listeners have had too. It's a unique investment opportunity right now. I think as people are looking to make maybe a second real estate investment, Puerto Rico sounds like it should be at the top of the list.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. This episode of From the Ground Up was sponsored by Feather the Nest, the crowdfunding source for all of your real estate needs. Why register for silverware when you can start your way to owning or renting your own home? Please sign up for your nest at www.featherthenest.com. A special thanks to my extraordinary producer, Sohail Fazludin, who has made this podcast possible.